the starlight horizon drifted silently through the violet glow of the Epsilon Nebula, its silver hull reflecting the scattered light of distant stars. Inside, the Academy ship was alive with the chatter of young cadets from across the galaxy. They were here to learn, to compete, and to prove themselves worthy of commanding fleets, leading colonies, or shaping the fate of entire worlds. Among them, most students mingled eagerly, forming groups and alliances. But in the center of the dining hall, under the soft hum of the overhead lights, a figure sat alone. Princess Lyra of the Zolari Dominion looked like she belonged to another world, and in many ways, she did. Her skin shimmered with soft bioluminescent patterns, colors shifting in delicate waves along her arms and neck. But today, the symmetry of those patterns was off. A jagged streak ran across her left arm, and the subtle glow of her markings flickered unevenly. In the eyes of most Exolari, this made her flawed. Some whispered she was weak. Others said she was unlucky. Either way, she had been isolated from the start. No one wanted to sit near the flawed princess. Lyra stared at her untouched tray of food, the aroma of alien spices mingling with the metallic scent of the ship. Her eyes, large and violet, scanned the crowd, but none of the faces looked at her with kindness. Even the humans on board, rare and often viewed with curiosity or suspicion, avoided her. She was used to it by now. The cold stares, the subtle shoves, the whispers just out of earshot. Still, it hurt. Being the daughter of a ruling house was supposed to mean respect, or at least caution. Instead, it had brought her isolation. As she poked at her food, trying to make herself small, a voice broke the silence beside her. "Mind if I sit here?" Lyra turned to see a human boy standing awkwardly holding a tray. He looked ordinary at first glance. Brown hair, green eyes, and a posture that suggested neither arrogance nor fear. But there was something in his gaze that made Lyra pause. He wasn't looking at her glow, her patterns, or her supposed flaw. He was looking at her as if she were just another person, waiting for her answer. I don't mind," she said softly, almost surprised that her voice carried across the space. He smiled and sat down, setting his tray carefully on the table. "Thanks," he said. "I'm Marcus Hale. Human." "Lyra," she replied. "Princess Lyra of Zelari." The title sounded strange coming out of her mouth, like an echo of a life she didn't fully own. Marcus didn't flinch. He didn't recoil from the title or the prestige that came with it. Instead, he tilted his head slightly, curious. "Princess?" "That's impressive." "Must be lonely sometimes, though." Lyra blinked. No one had ever spoken to her like that before. Most tried to impress her or dismiss her entirely. This human simply recognized what she felt: loneliness. "I suppose," she said, staring down at her hands, "most people don't—"
"They don't understand me. They think I'm too different."
Marcus glanced at her arm, at the uneven glow of her markings, and nodded without comment. "Difference isn't bad. Sometimes it's the best thing a person can have."
Lyra's brow furrowed. She wasn't used to hearing that.
"You really think so?" "I do," he said simply. "You look like you've got a lot of stories inside you." "I'd like to hear them." For a moment, Lyra considered dismissing him. Humans were rare here, and she didn't trust many. But something about Marcus felt safe. Tentative, yes, but safe. She gave a small nod. "I suppose I could tell you a little." The first words were awkward, clipped, and cautious. She spoke of her homeworld, of the glowing forests of Zelara, the floating cities above the clouds, the strict expectations of her family. She spoke of the academy, the challenges of living among students who valued perfection above all else. and the sting of being judged for something as uncontrollable as the flicker of her bioluminescence. Marcus listened quietly, nodding at intervals, asking questions that made her explain further, not for interrogation, but for understanding. When she mentioned the isolation, he didn't look away. He didn't offer pity. Instead, he said, "I know what it's like to feel out of place. Being human here is complicated. People expect you to be strong, to be clever, to know everything about every alien culture. Most of the time, they just expect you to fail." Lyra looked at him, surprised. Humans weren't considered strong or especially intelligent by many alien races. Yet here he was, speaking confidently about their shared struggle, as if he were proof that survival required more than perfection. It required heart. They talked for nearly an hour, ignoring the chatter around them. Lyra found herself laughing at some of his stories, small, shy laughter that hadn't surfaced in months. She told him about the time she tried to hide her markings with temporary shaders, only for the flicker to betray her. Marcus laughed, not cruelly, but genuinely, and admitted he had once tried to fix a spaceship's engine with a piece of chewing gum, only to nearly flood the engine core with coolant. When their laughter subsided, the dining hall felt less like a crowded cage and more like a place where possibilities existed. Lyra felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Not for herself necessarily, but for the idea that maybe someone could see her for who she truly was, not for what others said she should be. The bell rang, signaling the end of the meal. Students began filing out, conversations picking up, laughter and arguments echoing in the hall. Lyra packed her tray slowly, unwilling to leave the company of this human who had dared to sit beside her. "Will I see you tomorrow?" she asked quietly. Marcus smiled, standing and picking up his tray.
I'd like that.
I think there's a lot more to learn about each other, and I'd like to see if your markings can do more than just flicker.
Lyra chuckled softly. "You really aren't afraid of me?" "Afraid?"
He shook his head.
"Why would I be? You're not dangerous. You're just different. That's interesting, not scary." For the first time, Lyra realized that her flaw could be a bridge, not a barrier. Perhaps, in the right company, it could even be a strength. As the hall emptied, Lyra lingered by the window, watching the stars streak past the hall, the nebula's glow reflected in her uneven patterns. But for once, she didn't feel shame. She felt potential. Marcus walked past the window, giving her a small wave. She waved back, her pulse quickening. It was strange how a simple act, someone choosing to sit beside her, could change the entire perspective of her day. The rest of the evening passed slowly, the academy settling into the quiet hum of study and preparation. Lyra returned to her quarters, replaying the conversation in her mind. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but she knew one thing. She would no longer hide entirely. There was someone who saw beyond her flaws, and that gave her courage she hadn't felt before. Meanwhile, Marcus returned to his own room, jotting down notes about his interactions with Lyra. He wasn't sure why he felt compelled to help, or why her presence lingered in his mind long after he left the hall. Perhaps it was the human instinct to protect those who were unfairly judged, or perhaps it was the curiosity that humans always carried, the drive to understand, to connect, to thrive where others saw weakness. By the time the lights dimmed across the ship, both Lyra and Marcus were awake with possibility. The academy could be cold, harsh, and unforgiving, but together they had found a small space of warmth and trust. And in the vast emptiness of space, that small space could become the foundation for something extraordinary, unseen. A few other students had glanced at them during the meal, some with curiosity, some with surprise, and some with disdain. But it didn't matter. The bond had begun, and in the galaxy, even a small spark could grow into a blazing fire. For Lyra, the princess who was flawed, it was the first day she realized that being different did not mean being unworthy. For Marcus, the human cadet, it was the first day he understood that courage often begins with a simple choice, to sit beside someone when no one else would. And so, the story began, not with a battle, nor with a decree from a distant throne, but with a quiet act of human kindness, small yet powerful enough to change the course of two lives. The stars outside the window shimmered as if in acknowledgement, and somewhere in the distance, the ship hummed a steady rhythm, carrying its students toward challenges, triumphs, and the unfolding of destinies neither of them yet understood. Lyra lay down that night, staring at the ceiling, the uneven glow of her markings mirrored in her mind. She wasn't alone anymore. And for the first time in a long time, that was enough. The next morning aboard the Starlight Horizon began like any other, with the hum of engines and the quiet shuffle of students moving to their training stations. Lyra walked through the corridors, her shoulders slightly straighter than usual. For the first time in weeks, she felt a spark of confidence. Yesterday, a human had chosen to see her for who she was. That spark remained. As she approached the training hall, she noticed Marcus already there, waiting with his usual calm expression. He waved, and Lyra hurried to catch up.
"Good morning," he said. "I hope you're ready. I heard the instructors have planned something interesting today."
Lyra raised an eyebrow. Interesting? That can mean trouble here. Marcus shrugged. Or adventure. Depends on your perspective. They entered the hall together, the space buzzing with students from dozens of alien species. Some were stretching, some were practicing combat drills, and a few were exchanging quiet conversations about yesterday's meal. Whispers about Lyra's alliance with Marcus floated through the air, a mixture of surprise and curiosity. Lyra felt the eyes on her, the unspoken judgment still lingering, but she kept walking. She had learned yesterday that someone believing in her could make the whispers fade. Before she could think further, the Academy's intercom crackled to life. A calm but urgent voice announced, "Attention all cadets! Sensors have detected an asteroid swarm approaching from the Epsilon Nebula. All students must report to their assigned emergency stations immediately." Gasps filled the hall. The Starlight Horizon was equipped with shields and automated defenses, but a direct collision could be catastrophic. Many students froze, unsure of what to do. Some of the older cadets barked orders, but confusion reigned. Lyra's heart thumped in her chest. She had studied asteroid patterns in theory, but she had never faced a real-life threat like this. She glanced at Marcus, whose expression was calm but focused. "Follow me," he said, taking her hand lightly. "We'll figure this out together." She hesitated only for a moment before nodding. Together, they ran to the nearest emergency station, a control room lined with holographic displays and consoles. The station was designed for small groups to coordinate the ship's automated defenses and assist the main navigation system. Lyra took a deep breath and stepped forward. Her hands hovered over the console, her bioluminescent markings flickering with nervous energy. She had learned to regulate her telepathic resonance for precision, but the adrenaline made it jittery. Marcus glanced at her, noticing the slight tremor.
"Take it slow," he said.
You know more about this than most. I'll handle the systems I can. Lyra nodded, appreciating the quiet trust he offered.
She began calibrating the defensive array, adjusting the trajectory of the automated drones that could intercept smaller asteroids. Marcus worked alongside her, feeding data into the ship's navigation system, calculating angles and velocities with human intuition. The first wave of asteroids appeared on the main holo display. Tiny dots at first, but their speed and density alarmed everyone watching. Other students screamed, panicked, or simply froze in place. Lyra, however, focused. She adjusted her resonance, sensing the minor fluctuations in the ship's gravity field, and guided the drones with precise commands. Marcus, noticing a cluster that threatened to slip past her calculations, called out, "Left flank!" Small ones are accelerating faster than expected. Lyra adjusted immediately, a bead of sweat rolling down her forehead.
"Got it! Redirecting drones!"
Calculating deflection paths. The two worked in perfect synchronization, human intuition and Excelari ability complementing each other. Slowly, the swarm began to break apart. Drones collided with smaller rocks, sending them off course, while the ship's shields absorbed minor impacts. Other students began to notice. The whispers turned to gasps of awe. The Flawed princess and the human were not panicking. They were solving the problem. A larger asteroid loomed closer, too massive for drones to handle.
Lyra hesitated, calculating angles and potential outcomes.
She felt the familiar flicker of her markings intensify. Marcus noticed immediately. "You can do it," he said firmly. "Trust your instincts."
I trust you.
Lyra closed her eyes for a moment, letting her resonance sync with the ship's sensors. She visualized the asteroid's path, then extended her mental focus to subtly nudge the ship's automated defense cannons, using her telepathic link to adjust targeting algorithms. The asteroid shifted slightly, then split under the combined force of her guidance and the ship's systems.
Nice work, Marcus exclaimed. We're not done, but we're holding. The emergency continued for another hour.
Smaller asteroids streaked past, each requiring precise calculations and split-second decisions. Lyra and Marcus remained calm, coordinating drones, shields, and navigational adjustments. By the time the last asteroid passed, the hull was silent, save for the hum of the ship and the panting of exhausted students. Lyra sank into her seat, her hands still glowing faintly from the effort. Marcus leaned back, smiling but tired.
That went better than I expected, Lyra said, her voice trembling slightly.
Most of them would have panicked completely. Marcus shrugged modestly. Maybe we just worked together. Humans are good at improvising, and you're more capable than anyone expected.
Lyra looked at him, a mix of surprise and gratitude.
She had spent so long hiding her abilities, thinking they were weaknesses. Now she realized they were strengths, especially when paired with someone who understood trust and teamwork. Word of their success spread quickly through the academy. Students who had avoided Lyra yesterday now looked at her with curiosity, some with cautious admiration. Marcus noticed the change, but didn't comment. He knew that respect earned through action was far more meaningful than any words. By evening, the dining hall buzzed again with students recounting the emergency. Lyra entered cautiously, expecting whispers or ridicule. Instead, she found students nodding at her, some even offering smiles. The fear and prejudice were still there, but a seed of change had been planted. She spotted Marcus sitting at a corner table, waiting. Relief washed over her as she approached. "You did well," he said, simply.
"So did you," she replied. "I couldn't have done it without you."
Marcus waved off her words.
"You could have. I just helped channel it."
You're the one who saved everyone. For the first time, Lyra felt a flicker of pride, not arrogance, but the quiet satisfaction of knowing she had made a difference.
She realized that being flawed didn't mean being powerless. It meant having the potential to see the world differently, to act where others hesitated, and to create solutions that no one else could imagine. Over the next few days, Lyra and Marcus continued to work together, not only in emergencies but in training exercises. They explored the ship's systems, tested navigational strategies, and even learned to anticipate each other's actions without words. Their bond strengthened, and slowly, other students began to take notice. Some were still skeptical. Zalari peers whispered that Lyra's uneven markings might cause problems in future simulations. Alien cadets from other worlds doubted a human could contribute meaningfully. But Marcus ignored the skeptics, and Lyra began to do the same. They were learning that judgment based on appearances or assumptions was meaningless compared to action, skill, and courage. One evening, as the academy prepared for lights out, Lyra and Marcus stood by a viewport, gazing at the stars streaking past in hyperspace.
"Do you think they'll ever accept me?" she asked quietly.
Marcus thought for a moment, then said, "Some might never. But that's okay."
You don't need everyone to see your worth. You only need someone who does.
And look at us. We're changing things, even if it's just a little. Lyra smiled faintly, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with the ship's temperature controls. For the first time, she truly believed in herself, not because others said she was worthy, but because she had acted in the face of fear, alongside someone who saw her potential. As they parted for the night, Lyra felt lighter, her markings glowing steadily instead of flickering. She had faced her first real challenge aboard the Starlight Horizon, and had not only survived, but thrived. And somewhere deep inside, she knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy was vast, full of dangers, wonders, and surprises. If she could face an asteroid swarm with a human at her side, perhaps she could face anything. Tomorrow, the Academy would continue its training. There would be simulations, tests, and more challenges, but Lyra was no longer afraid of them. She had learned that courage, trust, and determination mattered far more than perfection. Marcus had shown her that small acts, like sitting beside someone when no one else would, could change everything. And in turn, Lyra had discovered that her flaws were not weaknesses but tools, waiting for the right moment to shine. As the ship drifted through the nebula, glowing with soft lights and the hum of its engines, Lyra finally felt a sense of belonging. Not because she had changed for others, but because she had chosen to rise above their judgment, to act, and to trust in herself. And in Marcus. The stars outside flickered, distant and unfeeling, yet somehow promising. They promised new challenges, new victories, and the endless possibility of proving that courage and ingenuity, especially human ingenuity, could change the fate of anyone, no matter how flawed they seemed. The Starlight Horizon hummed with quiet tension as the Academy prepared for the next challenge, the Interstellar Survival Simulation. It was a test that all students feared, a carefully crafted scenario designed to push them to their limits, to evaluate problem-solving, leadership, and the ability to adapt under pressure. No one had ever passed it perfectly, and many had failed spectacularly. Lyra stood beside Marcus on the observation deck, watching the holographic briefing unfold. Students from dozens of species filled the hall, murmuring nervously. Aliens with sleek tentacles, armored skin, and luminescent eyes whispered about who would excel, who would fail, and, in hushed tones, who they thought was flawed.
Lyra clenched her fists, feeling the familiar flicker of her bioluminescent markings.
They pulsed in soft shades of violet, a reflection of her anxiety. Marcus noticed and gave her a reassuring nod. "Remember," he said quietly, "we work together. Their doubts don't matter. We've got this." Lyra nodded. The human's calm determination was contagious. She had learned in the asteroid incident that fear and panic were often worse than the challenge itself. With Marcus at her side, she felt ready to face whatever the simulation could throw at them. The briefing ended, and students were paired into teams. Lyra and Marcus were assigned to the same group, much to the surprise of others. Many of the top-tier cadets whispered among themselves, questioning the choice. A few even smirked openly, confident that the human and the flawed princess would be the first to fail. The simulation began with a flash of light and a subtle tremor. When Lyra opened her eyes, the team stood on a barren, rocky planet with jagged cliffs and swirling clouds of neon gas. The environment was alien, uncharted, and unforgiving. Automated systems informed them of objectives: gather resources, navigate the terrain, and reach the extraction point safely. Immediately, chaos erupted among the students. Many rushed forward recklessly, ignoring hazards or falling into traps designed by the simulation. Others froze entirely, unsure of which direction to take. Lyra's stomach tightened, but Marcus's presence steadied her.
"Let's assess first,"
Marcus said, crouching to examine a rocky ledge.
"We need a plan before rushing in. Watch for unstable ground and gas pockets."
"Those clouds can be deadly if disturbed." Lyra nodded, her markings pulsing brighter as she focused her telepathic resonance. She could sense subtle vibrations in the ground, the faint hum of the planet's magnetic field. By combining that with Marcus's quick calculations, they identified the safest path forward. As they advanced, the first obstacle appeared, a deep chasm splitting the rocky terrain. Several students panicked, debating whether to risk a jump or try to find another route.
Lyra stepped forward. "I can help," she said.
I can sense the stability of the rocks. If we move carefully, we can cross safely. Marcus extended his hand.
I'll support your calculations with my own observations. Together, we'll guide everyone. With Lyra leading and Marcus coordinating, the team crossed the chasm without incident.
The other students began to notice. Whispers of doubt were replaced with cautious admiration. The human and the flawed princess were not just surviving, they were guiding others.
The terrain became more dangerous as they progressed.
Neon gas pockets hissed and sparked, threatening to ignite. Unstable cliffs crumbled underfoot. Automated hazards, designed to test teamwork and intelligence, sprang to life. But Lyra and Marcus adapted quickly. When a narrow passageway threatened to collapse under the weight of several students, Lyra extended her telepathic focus, sensing weak points and predicting the moment of failure. Marcus shouted instructions, directing the team to redistribute weight and move in a precise sequence. The passage held, and the team moved through safely. By midday, the students had faced multiple challenges, and fatigue was setting in. Many began to doubt their ability to complete the simulation. Marcus and Lyra, however, remained focused, combining human ingenuity with Solari intuition. At one point, they encountered a predatory alien creature, a massive, six-legged predator with chitinous armor and glowing red eyes. Most students panicked, scattering in different directions. Lyra froze for a heartbeat, her mind racing. The creature's behavior was unpredictable, but she could sense its patterns through subtle vibrations in the ground and shifts in the air.
"Don't run!" she shouted to the others. "We need to move together!" Marcus grabbed her arm. "We can outsmart it. Follow my lead." He directed the team toward a narrow gorge, where the creature's large frame would be unable to follow.
Lyra used her resonance to guide the team, sensing each student's position and coordinating movements. The predator lunged, but they moved in unison, slipping into the gorge safely. When the danger passed, students who had doubted them stared in amazement. Marcus smiled faintly, catching Lyra's eye.
"See? Different? Doesn't mean weak." Lyra's heart swelled.
Her markings glowed steadily now, a visual echo of her confidence. For the first time, she didn't feel shame for her flaws. Instead, she saw them as part of the solution, a unique strength that allowed her to perceive what others could not. The final stage of the simulation approached, the extraction point. It was located atop a towering cliff, with unstable ledges and harsh winds. Several students hesitated, fearful of the climb. Lyra assessed the cliff carefully. She could sense the best holds, the safest footholds, and the timing needed to avoid sudden gusts. Marcus calculated wind speeds, ledge stability, and timing. Together, they guided the team in a synchronized ascent. Some students faltered, but with Lyra's telepathic guidance and Marcus's human ingenuity, everyone reached the summit safely. As they stepped onto the final platform, the simulation ended with a flash of light and a soft chime. The Academy's systems confirmed completion. The team had not only survived, but had done so with minimal errors. The hall erupted in applause, some students clapping in disbelief. The instructors nodded with approval, impressed by the ingenuity and teamwork displayed. Many had doubted the human and the flawed princess. Yet here they stood, victorious. Lyra turned to Marcus, her eyes shining.
"We did it,"
she said, her voice trembling with excitement and relief. Marcus smiled.
"We did it together. That's what matters."
The other students slowly approached, some with hesitant smiles, others with curiosity. One of the top-tier Zolari cadets stepped forward. "Princess Lyra, I underestimated you. And you, human Marcus, you have proven that humans are more capable than I thought." Lyra blinked, surprised by the acknowledgement. Marcus's calm gaze met hers, and she realized something important. Respect wasn't something you demanded, it was earned. through action. By evening, the Academy's dining hall buzzed with excitement. Students talked not only about the simulation's dangers, but about the unexpected success of the team that had been doubted. Lyra and Marcus sat together, sharing stories and laughter, the space around them warm with acceptance and admiration. Even those who had once ignored or ridiculed Lyra now approached her cautiously, asking for advice or assistance. It was a small victory, but for Lyra, it meant the world. Her flaws were no longer barriers. They were strengths that had helped save others and prove that courage, intelligence, and trust mattered more than perfection. That night, as Lyra lay in her quarters, she reflected on the day's events. She had faced fear, danger, and doubt, yet she had not only survived, but thrived. She had learned that being different was not a weakness. It was a gift, a perspective that allowed her to see solutions others could not. Marcus visited briefly, leaving a small note on her console.
"You were brilliant today. Let's see what we can do tomorrow."
Lyra smiled, her markings pulsing gently. For the first time, she didn't feel alone. She had a friend, a partner, and someone who truly saw her potential. She had faced the simulation and emerged stronger, not just in skill, but in confidence. Outside, the stars of the Epsilon Nebula shimmered like distant fires, silent witnesses to the day's triumphs. Inside the starlight horizon, a flawed princess and a human cadet had proven that courage, ingenuity, and teamwork could overcome even the harshest challenges. Lyra closed her eyes, feeling the steady rhythm of her heart and the gentle glow of her markings. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new tests, and new opportunities to grow. But she knew now that she could face them, not alone, but with Marcus at her side, and with the strength of her own unique abilities guiding her.
And somewhere in the quiet hum of the ship, a small truth settled in her mind. Being different didn't make her less. It made her exceptional. The next morning aboard the Starlight Horizon carried a tense energy. The Academy's corridors were alive with whispers, murmurs about the previous day's simulation and the unexpected success of Lyra and Marcus. Many students who had once ignored or mocked them now watched from a distance, curiosity mingled with skepticism. Others, particularly a group of elite cadets, simmered with resentment. They refused to accept that a human and a flawed princess could succeed where others had failed. Lyra walked through the corridors, her posture steady, her markings glowing softly. She could feel the eyes on her, some admiring, some doubtful, some hostile. She ignored the negativity as best she could, but her mind kept returning to the elite cadets, who seemed determined to challenge her. Marcus fell into step beside her. "You're going to be okay," he said quietly. "Ignore them."
"We've earned our place, and actions speak louder than words." Lyra nodded, drawing strength from his calm confidence.
The day's lessons were practical exercises in zero-gravity combat, a training session designed to test agility, strategy, and teamwork. The elite cadets had been vocal about forming their own competitive teams, and it was clear they intended to dominate the exercise. When the groups were assigned, Lyra and Marcus were paired again, though the elite cadets sneered.
"Looks like the princess finally has a friend," one of them said, a tall, armored Zeleri named Vare.
"Too bad it won't help you survive today." Lyra ignored the insult, focusing instead on the training arena. The zero-gravity chamber was vast, with floating platforms, swinging obstacles, and strategically placed hazards. The exercise would test both mental and physical coordination, and mistakes could result in serious consequences for points and ranking. As the session began, chaos erupted. Teams collided, misjudged distances, and faltered under pressure. Many students panicked, struggling to navigate the disorienting environment. Lyra took a deep breath, centering herself. She could feel the pull of the chamber's artificial gravity shifts and the subtle vibrations of the floating platforms.
"Follow my lead," she told Marcus. "We can move smoothly if we coordinate."
Marcus nodded.
"Right. You sense the environment."
I'll calculate angles and momentum. Together,
We'll guide our team.
The duo moved gracefully, Lyra guiding the cadets telepathically, and Marcus directing with his sharp human intuition. They adjusted trajectories, called out warnings, and corrected missteps before they became disasters. Slowly, their team began to pull ahead, navigating obstacles that others struggled with. The elite cadets noticed. Vare's eyes narrowed as he watched Lyra and Marcus, their seamless coordination outpacing the best of his team. He barked orders, attempting to assert control, but his team faltered. Frustration grew, and the elite cadets began to clash with one another, their arrogance undermining their strategy. A particularly tricky section of the chamber appeared, a series of rotating platforms suspended over a pit filled with energy nets designed to trap cadets who fell. Many teams hesitated, calculating risk and timing. Lyra focused her resonance, feeling the precise moment each platform would rotate. Marcus shouted directions, adjusting their team's momentum and angles.
Step 2 together, he called.
Don't rush. Trust the movement. Lyra guided them with subtle telepathic nudges, ensuring cadets moved in sync.
One student, a young Zorani with armored forearms, panicked mid-jump. Lyra sensed the fear spike and adjusted the timing instantly. The student landed safely, gasping but unharmed. The elite cadets watched, astonished. They had assumed Lyra's flaws would hinder her. Instead, they realized that her unique abilities, combined with Marcus's human problem-solving, gave their team an edge no conventional skill could match.
Vare's frustration boiled over. "This isn't fair," he shouted, swinging a training baton in the air. "The princess and her human friend cheat with their tricks."
Lyra ignored him. She knew the truth. There was no cheating. Their advantage came from trust, coordination, and the ability to think differently. The elite cadets' arrogance blinded them to the power of teamwork and innovation. As the exercise continued, a sudden challenge appeared. A series of floating energy barriers that pulsed and shifted unpredictably. Teams who hesitated were trapped or knocked off course. Lyra's markings glowed brighter as she extended her resonance, sensing patterns in the pulse. Marcus calculated their movement, shouting timing instructions. 3, 2... Now! Their team moved in perfect synchronization, passing through the barriers unscathed while others struggled. The instructor's monitors recorded their performance as near flawless. The elite cadets fumed, unable to comprehend how a human and a flawed princess had outperformed them. Finally, the last obstacle loomed. A narrow bridge suspended above the chamber floor, rotating slowly and lit by shifting energy fields. One misstep would cost points or risk falling into the pit. Lyra assessed the bridge, calculating timing and momentum. Marcus adjusted for human and alien cadet differences in weight and balance. "Move carefully," Lyra instructed. "Step together. Trust me." Wah. The team advanced platform by platform, guided by Lyra's resonance and Marcus's quick calculations. When the last cadet reached the end, a loud chime signaled the exercise's conclusion. Their team had completed the zero-gravity challenge with minimal errors, demonstrating skill, coordination, and intelligence far beyond what the elite cadets had expected. The room erupted with applause, some students in admiration, others in reluctant acknowledgement.
Vare glared, unable to hide his frustration.
"This isn't over," he muttered under his breath. Lyra felt a quiet satisfaction. The challenge had not been about defeating others. It had been about trust, strategy, and working together. Marcus grinned beside her.
"See? They can't outthink us when we work as one."
Lyra smiled faintly. "Ooh. We've proven that being different isn't a weakness. It's a strength."
Later, the instructors debriefed the students.
They praised the top-performing teams, highlighting problem-solving, leadership, and innovative thinking. Lyra and Marcus were singled out for their exceptional coordination, resilience under pressure, and ability to guide others safely. Some students approached them with respect, asking how they had managed the challenges. Others remained skeptical or quietly resentful, but Lyra no longer cared. She had earned recognition through action, and the validation was stronger than any words could convey. That evening, the Academy's observation deck offered a view of the galaxy that was breathtaking. Lyra and Marcus stood together, watching the nebula's glow reflect on the ship's hull. "I never thought I'd feel proud like this," Lyra said softly.
After so long of being judged, it's strange to feel seen for what I can do, not for my flaws.
Marcus nodded. "It's a start. People often judge what they don't understand."
We've shown them that courage, intelligence, and teamwork matter more than appearances. Lyra considered this.
The galaxy was vast, full of civilizations that valued perfection, strength, and tradition. She had been taught that her imperfections made her unworthy. Yet, here, in the zero-gravity chamber and through every challenge, she had discovered that those same imperfections allowed her to perceive solutions and act where others hesitated.
"Do you think Vea will try to challenge us directly?" she asked, a hint of concern in her voice.
Marcus smiled faintly. "Probably.
But we're ready.
We've faced asteroids, predators, and zero-gravity chaos. We can handle whatever he throws at us." Lyra's markings pulsed steadily, a reflection of her growing confidence. For the first time, she felt that she didn't need to prove herself to everyone, just to those who mattered, and to herself. The stars outside shimmered as the ship moved through the nebula. Within the starlight horizon, the flawed princess and the human cadet had transformed the perception of their peers. Their teamwork, ingenuity, and courage had set a new standard, showing that trust, creativity, and determination could outperform arrogance and prejudice. Marcus glanced at Lyra. "Tomorrow will bring new challenges, simulations, tests, maybe even another showdown with Vare."
Lyra nodded, her eyes bright.
I'm ready. We're ready.
"Let them try. We'll show them again that being different isn't a weakness. It's our greatest strength." As the ship hummed through space, carrying its students toward the unknown, Lyra and Marcus knew that their journey was far from over. The Academy was just the beginning, a proving ground for courage, intelligence, and resilience. Beyond the ship, the galaxy waited with challenges, opportunities, and adventures that would test their skills and their bond. But they were no longer afraid. They had faced doubt, fear, and hostile peers, and emerged victorious. They had proven that humans and those who were considered flawed could rise above expectations, creating a path defined not by appearances or prejudice, but by action, teamwork, and heart. Lyra watched the stars streak past, a sense of calm determination settling within her. Marcus stood beside her, steady and unwavering. Together, they had changed the course of the Academy's perception, and perhaps, in time, they would change the galaxies. And in that moment, Lyra understood something she had never truly believed. Being different, being flawed, being human, or Zolare, or anything in between, did not limit one's potential. It magnified it. And when paired with trust, courage, and ingenuity, it could become unstoppable. The morning aboard the Starlight Horizon was quiet, almost deceptively calm. The Academy had scheduled a special exercise, an interstellar challenge meant to test the cadets' ultimate skills, strategy, courage, and adaptability. It was the final test before the term ended, and whispers of excitement and tension filled the corridors. Lyra walked through them, her markings glowing softly, a steady rhythm reflecting her calm determination. Beside her, Marcus adjusted the straps of his gear, eyes scanning the hall.
This one's going to be tough, he said. The instructors designed it to push every cadet to their limits.
Lyra nodded. She had faced asteroids, predators, and zero-gravity chaos. She had survived simulations that had broken many cadets' spirits, but this felt different. This was more than skill or intelligence. It was about leadership and trust under pressure. And this time, the elite cadets, especially Vare, were likely to try to challenge them directly. The briefing hologram activated in the central hall. A sprawling galaxy map appeared, highlighting a series of objectives on an uncharted planet. The planet was hostile, with jagged terrain, unpredictable weather patterns, and dangerous wildlife. Cadets were instructed to retrieve 3 energy cores scattered across the surface and return to the extraction point. Speed, strategy, and survival would determine success. Lyra and Marcus's team prepared quickly. They had learned to trust each other implicitly. Marcus would calculate optimal routes, anticipate hazards, and handle mechanical tasks, while Lyra would sense environmental shifts, detect dangers, and coordinate movements. Together, they were more than just a team. They were a unit. The simulation began with a flash of light. Suddenly, they were standing on the surface of the uncharted planet. The air was thick with mist, glowing faintly with bioluminescent spores. Sharp rocks jutted from the ground, and in the distance, dark silhouettes moved. Predators designed to test their reflexes and teamwork.
Lyra took a deep breath.
Her markings pulsed steadily, a calming rhythm as she extended her telepathic resonance. She felt the subtle tremors of the ground and the minor shifts in the air currents. Marcus crouched beside her, scanning the terrain. "First objective is straight ahead," he said.
"But see those cliffs? They're unstable."
"We'll need to go around." Lyra nodded. "Follow me."
"I'll sense the safest path." As they advanced, they encountered their first obstacle, a wide ravine with a weak, swinging bridge.
Most teams paused, debating the risk. Vare's team approached confidently, smirking. "Watch and learn," he said to his own cadets. Lyra focused, feeling the subtle vibrations of the bridge's support beams. "Step in sync with the swings," she instructed their team. "One step at a time. Trust me." Marcus calculated angles and momentum in real time. "Move together now." The team crossed safely, while Vare's group faltered. A misstep sent one cadet tumbling, narrowly caught by a safety tether. Murmurs of disbelief spread through the simulation monitors. The flawed princess and the human were leading again. The next challenge tested speed and agility. They had to navigate a dense forest of towering crystalline plants that emitted bursts of energy if touched. The others hesitated, fearful of the unpredictable pulses. Lyra extended her focus, sensing the rhythm of the energy bursts, predicting when it was safe to move. Marcus whispered directions. Left, now right, step forward. The team moved like clockwork, dodging energy bursts, climbing rocks, and slipping through narrow gaps. The elite cadets watched, their confidence faltering as Lyra's guidance and Marcus's intuition kept the team unscathed. Suddenly, a massive predator lunged from the shadows, a 6-legged creature with armored plating and glowing eyes. Most teams panicked, scattering in all directions. Lyra and Marcus froze for a heartbeat, then acted together.
"Everyone, back toward the ridge!"
Lyra called, projecting calm authority through her resonance. Marcus calculated the predator's speed and trajectory. "We can outmaneuver it if we move in formation." Guided by Lyra's subtle cues and Marcus's precise instructions, the team moved as one. The predator lunged, miscalculating its attack as the cadets shifted with perfect timing. It crashed into a crystal wall, stunned, and retreated. Their team cheered quietly, while others stared in amazement. By midday, they had retrieved 2 of the 3 energy cores. The final core rested atop a towering cliff, guarded by unstable ledges and a swirling storm of plasma clouds. Vare approached, his pride wounded by repeated failures. "We'll see who's better once and for all," he muttered, glaring at Lyra and Marcus. Lyra felt the flicker of her markings intensify, not from fear, but from focus. "We'll reach it first," she said calmly. "Follow my guidance." Marcus nodded. "Step carefully. I've calculated the wind patterns and ledge stability. Trust me." Trust Lyra.
They approached the cliff, moving as a unit.
Lyra sensed the vibrations in the rock, warning them of unstable spots. Marcus shouted instructions, adjusting for shifts in weight and wind currents. The other cadets attempted to follow, but without the coordination and guidance of Lyra and Marcus, they faltered. At the final ledge, the plasma storm roared, crackling with energy. Lyra extended her resonance, predicting safe gaps in the storm. Marcus timed their movements perfectly. Together they crossed the storm, grabbed the final core, and raced to the extraction point. The simulation ended with a brilliant flash, signaling the team's success. Monitors confirmed their performance as the top of the class. Lyra and Marcus had not only completed the objectives, but had done so flawlessly, guiding their team through danger while overcoming hostile competitors. Vare's team arrived moments later, exhausted and frustrated. He glared at Lyra and Marcus. "You were lucky," he spat. Lyra shook her head, calm and composed.
"It wasn't luck. We planned, we trusted each other, and we acted. You let arrogance and fear control your actions,"
Marcus added. "Strength isn't just about skill or power.
It's about courage, thinking differently and working together. That's how we succeeded."
The instructors nodded approvingly. This exercise was designed to test ingenuity and teamwork, one announced. Lyra and Marcus have demonstrated that unconventional approaches, trust and courage are often superior to reliance on tradition and brute strength. Well done. The students who had once ignored or ridiculed Lyra now approached with respect. Some shook her hand, others offered cautious smiles. Marcus received nods of acknowledgement as well. The perception of humans and flawed cadets had shifted. That evening, Lyra and Marcus stood by the observation deck, gazing at the stars. The nebula's glow reflected on the hull, a reminder of the vast galaxy waiting beyond the academy. "We did it," Lyra said softly, her markings glowing gently. "I never imagined this, that people could see me differently."
Marcus smiled. "You've always had this within you. I just helped you see it. And together, we've shown others what's possible when you trust yourself and each other."
Lyra nodded, feeling a deep sense of pride. She realized that her flaws, once a source of shame, had become strengths, allowing her to perceive, adapt, and lead. Humans, too, had qualities that others underestimated: creativity, courage, and the willingness to act when others hesitated. Outside the viewport, the stars streaked past, reminders of the galaxy's endless challenges and opportunities. Lyra and Marcus knew that this was only the beginning. The Academy was a proving ground, but beyond it lay real missions, exploration, and the chance to change the galaxy itself. "I think we've set a new standard here," Marcus said quietly, "for teamwork, for leadership, for what's possible when people see beyond appearances." Lyra's eyes glowed softly as she considered this. "We've proven that being different, being human, being flawed, isn't a weakness."
"It's what makes us strong," Marcus nodded.
"Exactly. And it's just the beginning. There are worlds to explore, dangers to face, and discoveries to make. But we've already shown that courage, trust, and ingenuity can overcome anything." For the first time, Lyra felt a deep, unshakable confidence. She was no longer the flawed princess isolated in the dining hall. She was a leader, a strategist, and a partner in human ingenuity. Together with Marcus, she had reshaped the perception of her peers, proving that small acts of courage, like sitting beside someone when no one else would, could ripple outward and change everything. As the stars of the nebula shimmered, Lyra and Marcus stood side by side, ready for the future. The galaxy awaited, vast and uncertain, but they were no longer afraid. They had faced doubt, fear, and hostility, and had emerged stronger, wiser, and more united than ever. The journey of a human and a flawed princess had begun with a simple choice: One act of courage had sparked a chain of events that reshaped the Academy and challenged the galaxy's perceptions. Lyra realized that her uniqueness was not a limitation, but a gift, and Marcus understood that humans could rise to greatness when given trust and opportunity. Together, they would face whatever came next, not as outcasts, but as trailblazers, leaders, and friends. And in the quiet hum of the starlight horizon, a small truth settled into their hearts. Being different was not a weakness. It was power. And when combined with courage, trust, and determination, it could change the world. The stars outside seemed to shine a little brighter, as if celebrating the victory not just of a simulation, but of potential realized. For Lyra, the princess who had once been avoided, and for Marcus, the human who dared to act. This was more than a test. It was the beginning of a legacy. And as the ship continued its journey through the nebula, carrying cadets and dreams across the galaxy, one fact remained clear. The galaxy would never underestimate them again.